So Stafford Beer has come up with this system. He's been advising companies as a consultant. He's making a pretty good living. And then one he gets a call from this Salvador dude who's like, "Hey, do you want to come design our entire goddamn economy?"
And how did they?
Ahmed, I'd like to design my economy after.
Well, how did Allende even know to look this guy up? He was notorious?
I've never seen an actual explanation of how in the world Allende came across this stuff. I don't know if it was one of his advisors had read about it, or maybe Allende himself had been reading about it.
I think he was a bit of a polymath, and we were talking about poly earlier. But
I could totally believe that.
Yeah, he was just into a bunch of different stuff and was a really bright guy.
I could totally believe that, because the way that Stafford Beer talks about his conversations with Allende really indicates that Stafford Beer has, like, to this day, I guess Stafford Beer died a while back, but to his dying day had an enormous admiration for Allende. Mm-hmm. And of course, like anyone would, given that proposition, he's like, hell yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And hops on the next plane to Santiago. So he gets there and he's talking to Allende and he's explaining this entire system. And this is just like one of the cooler moments in like this whole story of socialist economic planning decentralized. He's talking about this system 5, this identity system, and Allende cuts him off before he can start describing it. And he goes, yes, the people. And like, it's just like immediately just pulls this like really awesome fucking moment of like, this isn't some like administrator on high. This isn't some president. This is like everyone. This is, the entire like body of the population.
The peoples are ones. The people are zeros. The people are a third number you might need, but won't.
It was, I don't know, just this great thing. So they start trying to like implement this, right? They start reorganizing all of the Chilean industry around these principles and trying to do it with the mindset of like, we're going to build a decentralized planned economy, and we're going to build out this system by which, rather than using competitive markets and practices and money and all of that, we're going to try to use this cooperative coordination outlined in these principles. We're going to try and use these conflict resolution systems. We're going to try and use these there's like an entire book he wrote on how to allocate the proper amount of resources to solve a problem and how to identify how you do that, right? They're implementing all of these like these systems that'll run the entire economy. And so Cybersyn was the technological backbone of that. It was and it's interesting. It's not nearly as like sophisticated and technological as you would think. I think, Anders, you messaged to me about it. You described it as like Star Trek economy computers or something like that. And it's actually way more low tech than you would think. I mean, it's the equivalent. I heard someone describe it once as being kind of like coordinating an economy with WhatsApp. Is that these were essentially they're using telephone lines to rapidly send information back and forth, essentially in real time, like factory output numbers. And so this is actually interesting. So what you were talking about with the industrial belts, I just run into that by another name. It was the sectors.
Oh, okay,
yeah. It was the different sectors, and they would kind of feed upwards. And they had 4 layers, so there were like 4 recursive layers going upwards. The factory was its own, organism, and then it was contained within the firm, and then there was the branch, and then there was the sector, and then there was the entire country. And so they were basically these teletype, what are they called? Telex machines that were left over from some other project, and just distribute these to all the different factories. And then the factories would communicate with one another within the firm, between the firms, all of this. And they were building out these lines of communication between people. And it was highly lateral. Like if a factory needed something, like an input from some other factory, it wasn't like in the Soviet Union where you had to go to like your firm administrator and be like, hey, can I have some more drill bits? We're running out. We can't make anything. And then the guy says, no, I need that, I need that funding to buy another Mercedes. And you're just like, well, fuck. Right. It was much more direct. Like you just went to the other factory dude and were like, hey, I want, I need these tools. I need these, these dies. I need these, stamps and presses. And then that's how you would get it. It was very lateral and direct. And it was all done through these telex machines. And they centralized up this like this pyramid of increasingly like core systems. And the idea is like, I think they have this idea called like algorithmics or something like that. And it's sort of like pain pleasure responses. And the idea is you're sending, in the modern day, we call these KPIs. These are essentially like you have certain metrics set in advance of like what is success, and whether or not it's achieving or failing kind of determines like, okay, is it failing really, really bad? Okay, it's going to go up to the next level and they're going to resolve it. And if they don't resolve it, then it goes up to the next level. And so the idea was the central system was never really supposed to do much more than watch unless it was real bad.
Right.
And the central system is where, if you ever look up online, I think if you go to the Wikipedia page for Project Cybersyn, you see this picture of this room with these like Star Trek chairs.
That's why I said Star Trek. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they were they were modeled after Star Trek. Actually, it was almost like they were doing it kind of as a slight joke about like, this is like some weird like sci-fi stuff we're doing, and they were like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we made the central command look like Star Trek? And they were like, let's do it, and they did it anyway.
Well, and I heard too that the idea behind it is that it's a circle very intentionally, so that there's sort of like a Socratic element to it, and there's buttons on all the chairs, but that's to like bring up different graphs and stuff. But so it was centralized, but they didn't want it to be, totally command.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the idea with VSM models, is you're not supposed to ever have the upper echelons like come down and direct anything. Their job is to receive like problems, maybe run like, future analysis, but they don't really make the decisions themselves. That's not how it's supposed to go, unless it's like a big deal or it falls directly in their domain or something like that, right? Like if two firms are arguing like that, then maybe the central system comes in to resolve that.